Eloheinu melech haolam,
Haolam,
asher kiddushanu
b'mitzvotav,
v'tzivonu
la'asok
b'divrei
b'divrei
Torah.
Torah.
Okay, hi, the cat is here now, so that should make things even harder. Tamara, I know you're allergic. Is this going to be okay that the cat is here? Yeah, okay. I would like, and I'm going to ask no, I'm not going to ask his permission because he wouldn't give it, but I am going to notify him that I'm going to take a couple of minutes to talk about Aleph Bet Yehoshua, the one of the most significant Israeli authors of the 20th century, even into the 21st, and he just passed away. And he absolutely deserves a mention. And I wrote down a few things. He is one of Israel's greatest authors. He probably is the end of a generation, the last of a generation of the really great internationally known authors. The book that I love most of all that he had written was A Late Divorce. And if you're interested just in picking up one beautifully written, translated into English, beautifully written book, A Late Divorce by Yehoshua, Yehoshua. He's always referred to as Aleph Bet, A-B, Yehoshua. Sephardic in background, political activist. He was outspokenly opposed to the occupation. On the other hand, because he was an absolute renegade, as opposed as he was to the occupation, he was equally opposed to the blind following of a so-called slogan of a two-state solution. And then he also managed to offend Jews around the world, which is one of the reasons why I admire him. For example, quote, "I am a total Jew because I live in Israel. Jews who don't live here are partial Jews." That won him a great deal of support in the United States. I attended a forum in which Aleph Bet Yehoshua debated Eric Yaffe. And Eric Yaffe, brilliant chair of the Union of Reform Judaism, Aleph Bet Yehoshua defined the word acerbic. And I have to tell you that it was a draw. We were astonished. It was a draw. He derided diaspora Jews as inauthentic and inferior. A Late Divorce, by the way, will bring up those themes. It's kind of interesting that way. I quote, "Today we Jews speak a lot about tikkun olam, repairing the world. I would like Jews to speak more about tikkun atzmam, repairing ourselves." In other words, if we could be as interested in repairing ourselves as we are in repairing the world, we might get somewhere. Tikkun atzmam, repairing ourselves, was the foundation of Zionism, not changing the world, but changing the Jews. And then at the end, there's a conversation which we won't have today, a huge conversation about what is a Jewish author. And according to Aleph Bet Yehoshua, it's not just because the author is Jewish. That doesn't make someone a Jewish author. He said it's about language. A Jewish author must know the language of the Jewish people, to know the idioms, to know the expressions. And it's okay if you don't know Hebrew that much, because if you know Yiddish, that works. Or If you know Ladino, that works. So he's pretty broad about that. Hebrew, Yiddish, Ladino, the most important when defining Jewish literature. So you may know the name Sayyid Kashua. Sayyid Kashua is an Arab, an Israeli Arab who writes in Hebrew, is a fabulous humorist. So Yehoshua considered Kashua part of Jewish literature because he wrote in Hebrew even though he wasn't Jewish. Writing in Hebrew makes him part of classical Jewish writers. We're not going to go into it. We could certainly, but we lost one of the most brilliant, creative, and important Hebrew authors, Israeli authors, since the time of the founding of the state. Aleph Bet Yehoshua, the book that I recommended, one of them, there are many, The Late Divorce. And that divorce that he's talking about is the divorce between Israeli Jews and American Jews. Okay, so having started off with that, and it's great to see everybody here. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
To mention a couple of dates, Father's Day, as important as Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Father's Day is on Sunday. I didn't see Steve here. Good.
He's on a trip.
Yes, perfect. So the final current events class until the fall is on June 22nd. That'll be our last current events of the season. We've had a lot of fun with that. I haven't seen Jim Ruxin. I see Cindy. Cindy, anything happening? What's going on? Nothing on calendar.
I got nothing right now.
Okay, good. I know that Jim has a movie coming up, but I'm not able to comment on that. Okay.
Can I just say that I'll be 70 Monday? My birthday is
Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Happy birthday. You don't look a day over 60.
35.
Not going to go to 35, but okay.
And how about 45 or 50?
So checking in, we have one good piece of news from Donna. Any other good news happening? Anything else, even difficult news happening? Anything happening in your lives that you'd like to share with us? All right. I just want you to know that I'm going to be severely anxious for the next 2 weeks, more so than usual. Daughter Aviva and granddaughter Maya leave for Rwanda on Thursday, and they'll be spending 2 weeks on a medical mission in Rwanda, working with the native population. I think that is wonderful, and I wish it were somebody else's children, not mine. But nevertheless, they're going to Rwanda.
Wow. Well, pray for them.
Okay, please. I see Fern. Fern is entering here. Okay. Diane.
I just have a comment. My daughter and son-in-law were at the airport ready to go on a vacation, COVID positive, absolutely no symptoms, and still don't have symptoms. They're just angry because they have to isolate, but they have no symptoms. So that means that everybody out there could be positive, and that's just the way it is.
Okay, well, that's certainly great news and certainly a good way to approach.
Well, it's not good news for them.
Yeah, it's more and more and more, and that's reality. And I'm sorry for that.
Me
Any
too.
other things to share? Okay.
I got my second booster shot Friday, and I'm aching. My muscles have been aching all last 2 days.
Yeah, well, that's good stuff. Yeah, and now little kids can get it, and
Yeah.
I guess that's good. Okay, we're going to go into the text, having shared the memory of Aleph Bet Yehoshua, and just things about going on in our lives. I'd like to turn to chapter 9, verse 4. Chapter 9, verse 4 in the book of Numbers. And it's going to be a pretty interesting kind of thing we're looking at. I did this really well. The plout is 955. And of course, I failed to mark down the women's commentary, which I will do now. Numbers 9. I'm at Numbers 15. I'm at Numbers 10. Numbers 9, verse 4.
848.
848. 848. Okay, thank you for that. Now, we have something very reform in the Torah. Very reform, page, let's see, 9:4. Reform meaning, what do I mean by that? Reform meaning a level of flexibility in the law which is noteworthy, interesting, and suggestive, all those good things. So 9:4, and you know, everybody knows that Passover and Yom Kippur basically are the anchors of the, I can say this, are the anchors of the Jewish calendar. So there's 6 months between Passover, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. They both have elements of beginning the year for different kinds of reasons. Their dating is really important. Not only is it, let's say specifically about Passover, not only is the dating important as the beginning of freedom and so forth, but the dating is important because it relates to the calendar of nature. Pesach is the great transfer point between the winter months and spring and summer. And you have a lot of the symbols on the Seder plate that reflect that. So it connects to nature, and it connects to the very fabric of the Jewish calendar. Now, what happens if, God forbid, I don't know, you're perhaps living in a family, that maybe Diane's family, that has COVID, and you can't observe Passover biyomo on its date. You have Passover. What if you are on cruise and you cannot be together? Diane likes that one better. That you can't be with your family on Pesach. It is very clear. The Torah says the 14th of Nisan, 15th. This is when you have to do it. What do you do? So we look at 9:4. 9:4, page 955. Moses instructed the Israelites. They offered the Passover sacrifice, 14th day of the month at twilight. At twilight, fine. Now, verse 6. But there were some householders. By the way, the Hebrew doesn't say householders, but you know me, I'm not picky. It says men or people, but the translation householders. But there were some householders who were impure by reason of a corpse and could not offer the sacrifice on that day. And they came before Moses and Aaron. And those householders said, we are impure, because we came near a corpse. Why must we be debarred from presenting the Eternal's offering at the set time? And catch this sentence. This is fun. Moses said to them, he spoke Yiddish. He said, Haltzachain epis. He said, wait a minute. Literally, the text says here,
Stand by.
Vayomer Aleha Moshe, imdu. Stay right there. Stand there. That's what the text actually said. Stand there And I'm going to ask God what to do because I don't know the answer. That's right here in the Torah.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I love it. What does Moses's answer remind us about in terms of what went on in the desert? What did Moses's answer, and Ray, I'll get to you in a second. What did Moses's answer remind us about what was going on throughout the wilderness wandering? Any memory? Ongoing revelation. Moses and God had high tea every day, and God gave Moses more and more of revelation. The tradition doesn't require that Moses got all of the Torah at Sinai. Some say only the tablets of stone and the Ten Commandments. Some say other things. But the point is, Moses turns to God and said, I don't know how to handle this. I mean, these guys are right. What is keeping those people from observing Passover on the right date? What's keeping them from doing it? It says in the text, what's keeping them?
They were impure
Why are they impure?
because they were near a corpse.
Okay, they were near a corpse. They were taking care of a dead person. This is one of the great mitzvot in Jewish tradition. One of the answers of the responses the rabbis give to why it's so important, it's one of the few mitzvot that you do for someone else and you can receive nothing from them in return. You are caring for the deceased. This is a great mitzvah. It is a great mitzvah. And because of observing the great mitzvah, they can't do Passover. Okay, Ray.
Thank you. You're on a bigger and more interesting point, but I had a more technical Hebrew legalistic question about the language that unfortunately I am helpless to only look at translations, so Hebrew speakers can help me here. I'm looking at verse 7 and verse 6, where the Plout renders it unclean by reason of a corpse. And that raises for me red flags in its vagary, by reason of a corpse. It seems language that sort of alludes to a problem, but refuses to explicate the logic or even the concrete issue in recognizable terms. And I'm wondering, number one, if that's a faithful rendition of the Hebrew, and number two, if you or anybody on this call has any sense of why the seeming vagary, if not obfuscation, around the meaning of that point.
First of all, your questions are always on point. Secondly, vagaries and imprecision give rabbis a full-time job. So please don't attack that. You turn to us for made-up answers. We make up answers and we're regarded as intelligent. So that's, don't knock that. Next, the Hebrew says, Vayhi anashim asher hayu tmeim lenefesh adam. And there were some people who were tameh. The opposite of tameh is tahor, one of the great black and white episodes in Jewish language. Tameh, impure, tahor, pure, and it reflects a ritual status. So you have to be tahor, you have to be pure in order to bring the sacrifice to the sacred place, Jerusalem, whatever. You can't do that if you have been rendered tameh, impure, because of proximity to a corpse. Tamara, do you want to go further on that?
Well, the language is actually very ambiguous because it's nefesh Adam, which really means the being of a person, right? Adam is a person. So what the translators are doing is interpolating what that term means and reading it as a technical term, even though it's somewhat ambiguous. So what you said in terms of the reason is clear, and of course on target as always, but the language is unusual.
Yeah, nefesh Adam is not the way you would normally approach describing a corpse.
Right.
It just isn't. And so, Ray, you pick up on an ambiguity. It's there, and we are grateful for it. But the point, I think the translator is correct. I think it looks to me like a person got near a corpse, was not able to participate in bringing the Passover sacrifice, and thus has a problem. And the problem is, exacerbated by being near the corpse was a good thing. He was whatever. It was doing a mitzvah. And of course, that's my interpolation, because it doesn't say he was dealing with the corpse. The text says he was near the corpse. And I prefer to think that maybe he was helping protect and preserve the corpse before burial. So the first part is, that's the problem. He's doing a good thing. Being near a corpse requires a purification process, which could not be accomplished before the Passover sacrifice was due. That's the conundrum. That's the problem.
Rabbi,
Ray, one second. Ray, did I answer your question?
You did and you didn't. You offered if I understood you correctly, you offered a midrash on my question, which I certainly appreciate. And I am happy to participate in that midrash with you, because I too, and regular visitors here will know that I'm a member of a Chevra Kaddish, so I very much relate to the value and importance of this kindness. So for that reason, I'm happy to buy into that midrash. At the same moment, I think I have to recognize it as a midrash and not something that is explicit in the text. But I think Torah works that way sometimes as well. So I'm happy to have parallel readings, your drash and the extant ambiguity that it seems to be on the page.
There is, I'm going to leave it with this. There is a strange Hebrew usage in Nefesh Adam. It is that. It is strange. But I think at least all the commentaries that I've seen, not just the translator, happy to say he was near a corpse. And I think this is because otherwise they wouldn't understand it as a problem. Okay, Mara and Harv, and then Merle.
if I look at the Hebrew, it says to me that if you are impure because of the soul of another. And so I wonder if this is also a warning to us that we become impure if we are around those who behave in ways that would be considered unacceptable to Judaism and our ethics.
I love it. I think it's wonderful. You'd have to go back to Ray and talk about more midrash. Yes, that's good. Numbers 19:11 spells out the law. I haven't read the rest of it. Regarding contact with a corpse, using the same language, nefesh adam, 7 days of impurity. Thank you. So it's different, but not sui generis. It's not totally a standalone. And Mara, I love what you just did. I love it. I haven't read a rabbinic commentary that goes that way, but that doesn't mean it couldn't. And thank you. Now I'm going to read the text differently. And if it doesn't say it that way, maybe it should. Okay, Merle.
So my question is does handling the corpse or taking care of the corpse, however you're taking care of it, does that take precedence over even having to celebrate Passover?
Apparently, yes.
Totally.
Okay.
Okay.
I just never thought of any of this way. That's why it's putting a whole new perspective on my head.
The Hebrew expression Halvayat Hamet, it says accompanying the dead, but it's really the whole process. The whole process. It takes a huge priority in Jewish tradition.
Okay, thank you.
Effie?
When it says near a corpse, what does near mean?
I mean, I'm not going to be
Same building?
I am not going to be able to answer that. My gut is, and I'll be open for a gut check, that when you enter a house, a building in which a corpse is found, you're already into corpse land. And it doesn't mean just being within Dalet Amot, within four cubits of the corpse. Tamara, do you have a better answer on that? I do know that when you enter a building in which there is a corpse, you're already affected. I can answer you that. Okay, Howard.
I've read that if the house next door has a corpse and there's a tree and the branches of the tree fall down on the roof of the house next door and on your house roof, that the impurity gets transmitted through the branch of the tree into your house. So your house would also be impure.
I have never heard that. That doesn't mean that it's not accurate. I can give you a better one. If you're in an airplane flying over a Jewish cemetery, no, please, I didn't laugh at you.
Sorry.
If you're in an airplane flying over a Jewish cemetery, you can be rendered impure because the tuma of the corpse goes straight up. I don't know if that counts as much as a tree limb, but I thought I'd tell you that anyway. I have never heard that. Where did you pick that up?
I can't remember, but it was definitely in some writings. Somebody's either Orthodox writings or somebody fairly knowledgeable writing about what Orthodox people believe.
Are you sure you weren't 18-year-olds and doing some rather illegal drugs?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Forget that. But I'm going to have to go looking. I mean, tuma is a big deal and it's contagious. It really is easy to be tumified. Have I missed any? Howard, I got you. Are we okay? I want to go forward on the issue. So the big deal for me is Moses said to them, stand by, which is very much the translator, not the text. It says, imdu, stand there. And stand by is like more, it's a contemporary phrase, which really annoys me. Okay, I'll find out what God has to say. And this is what God has to say, verse 9. God, I have the image of the rabbis of Chelm, 7 days and 7 nights stroking the divine beard, thinking about what a good answer could be, says, tell the Israelites, when you are defiled by a corpse, tameh la nefesh. Here's the word tameh, impure, nefesh, again, being used to refer to a corpse. Or, and the text adds, If you're on derech rechoka, if you're on a long journey and you can't get back in time to offer the Paschal sacrifice, look at verse 11. Then offer it on the second month, Nisan, the month of Passover, the first month. Offer it the second month on the 14th day of that month at twilight. Eat it with, oh my God, matzot and maror, with matzah and bitter herbs. And don't leave any of it over, and don't, whatever. Offer it in strict accord with the law of the Passover sacrifice. But if someone is pure, tahor, and not on a journey, doesn't offer the Passover sacrifice when it's due, then, oh my God, look what it says. The penalty is karet. And the rabbis interpret the penalty to mean premature death. So if you are able to offer the sacrifice and you don't, God will impose premature death on you. It's a pretty serious penalty.
Rabbi, may I ask a question?
I'm sorry, do I have a hand up? Where do I see a hand? I'm sorry. Okay, yes. Donna.
I heard about a lady who went to her husband's funeral and she kissed him in the casket. She kissed her husband on the cheek. What does God think of that? She missed her husband so much she was crying in shock, and she went up and stroked his head and kissed him on the cheek. I saw that happen. What does God?
One thing that is fairly clear: Jewish funerals generally do not have open caskets. And having an open casket would be very unusual in a Jewish funeral. What the woman would have done in privacy before the casket was closed, I could only respect and feel pain for her and have no other comment.
Thank you, Rabbi.
If she were involved in the temple sacrifices, maybe something else, but not that. No.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. Now, the rabbis go into this one full bore. Question: if you're observing the second Passover, do you have to remove all chametz? All those who think yes, raise your hands. All those who think no, raise your hands. Answer is no. No, you don't have to remove the chametz. You only have to avoid any proximity of chametz to the sacrifice you're offering. That's it. That's it. So, okay, that's done. Chabad says, Effie, that in that circumstance you have to eat shmura matzah. You have to eat the really, 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 really pesadika matzah, but that's it.
They eat the shmira matzah even on the first Seder.
Well, yes, but yeah, that's known. But now it's not a Seder. It's the offering of the sacrifice. And it says only matzah and maror. Fine. What grabbed me here was the beautiful notion built into a very rigid set of observances that offers flexibility. And it's a signal to us. Don't be so blessed committed to the letter of the law that you refuse to realize that there are human beings involved and sometimes some flexibility is necessary. I mean, that's how I read it. I read it as a little spark of liberal Judaism sneaking into the Torah text. Fern.
It's so little that I don't even know how you can do it. I mean, in a paragraph where they're telling you that if you do it wrong, you have to be killed. And
it doesn't say you have to be killed. God will give you a shortened life.
Okay. I mean, okay?
Oh, yeah, Fern, yes, but I am desperate for little sparks of flexibility. Yes, out of desperation, I say, this is fascinating. If you can't do it the 14th of Nisan, do it the 14th of Iyar. By the way, if you check traditional Jewish calendars, you will find Pesach Sheni on the calendar. Second Passover. Pesach Sheni is actually on the traditional Jewish calendar. Telling folks, and look, we've talked about this before. How many times have I encountered families who say, I am not going to have Seder on Seder night because my kids are in college, they'll be home over the weekend. Okay? And I want to say to them, you know, even in the Torah, there is flexibility for family being separated, distances, impurity because of proximity to a corpse. I will also tell you, but if you promise not to tell anybody, as a young rabbi, I know you find that hard to believe I ever was, but as a young rabbi, I was tough that first Seder should be on first Seder night and that people shouldn't delay first Seder for the college kids. I was a hard nose, and I'm sorry for that. I am sorry for that. I was far too strict on something which deserved a leniency. Okay, now that I've done my mea culpa, Larry.
So I think this is really important because there are all sorts of other circumstances where there's a conflict between a requirement and a prohibition. And you can easily see in other societies or cultures, the rule being just the opposite. If the circumstances create something where you can't do what's required, too bad for you. But you know, we all deal with this pretty much every day or frequently in terms of, you know, trying to accommodate both what's required and what's prohibited.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Eric?
Hello, I'm from New York City, and sometimes in New Jersey, in some counties in New Jersey, they got the blue laws, so I can't buy anything, but the only time you can go shopping is on a Saturday because the stores are closed on Sunday. What do I do?
About 40 years ago, I would have suggested you go to my father's store in Cleveland, but that's no longer possible. Eric, I have a very strong belief in a Hebrew phrase found in the Torah, which is v'chai b'hem, live by them, v'chai b'hem. There's noise coming from somewhere. I'm not sure.
No, I'm in Fifth Avenue. I'm walking on Fifth Avenue, right across the street from St. Patrick's Cathedral. I'm on my cell phone. I just finished servicing it.
You're bragging. You're on Fifth Avenue, and I wish I were with you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm right there.
I would say shop if you need the food. Don't deny your food. Okay. I see Merle. Hi, Merle.
So my question is if you do the matzah and the moror on the second Pesach, do you still say the blessings?
Yes.
Okay, and then the other thing is, thank you for allowing us to be flexible because of situations with our kids that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily understand. We've had to be flexible and what night we have Passover, as long as it's within the week of the first Passover.
And this is, look, we're in Los Angeles, well, except for one of us who's on Fifth Avenue. We're in Los Angeles, and there's this thing about a Jewish pitcher who didn't want to pitch on Yom Kippur. What's the story? Okay, and his decision was Yom Kippur is more important. And that was a very powerful personal decision.
Yep.
And I just have to leave it like that. A very powerful, Sandy Koufax, a very powerful personal decision. Okay, Herman?
Rabbi, I'm going to go off beat with you because it's bothering me now. It really is. Why is a person impure? I buried my mother. I buried my father. I buried a sister. I was there. These are loved ones. Why am I impure?
The impurity, and I feel what you're saying, Herman. I understand. I have done the same. The feeling is impurity is ritually connected, not connected to your being or yourself. You are not impure in your soul and in your spirit. You are not allowed under those circumstances to offer a sacrifice, but it has nothing to do with rendering impure the person you are. It's strictly a comment about your ability to offer a sacrifice, period. It doesn't mean that people should stay away from you, and certainly it is not a moral judgment. It is a statement. You know that you cannot bring a sacrifice if you are physically not perfect. The priests, the Levites must be physically perfect. It doesn't mean that having a broken limb means you are less than a beautiful human being. It does mean that for the sake of sacrifice, you can't do that now. So in no way does it impugn your nature, your being, yourself. It just means for the sake of this item, you cannot be present. Herman, I answered your question. Did I answer it?
You answered the question, but it still doesn't satisfy me.
I get that. I can understand. I can understand. The standards for approaching God and bringing the sacrifice are very high. And that means sometimes when life happens, you can't be there. And yes, the system says that.
You as a rabbi have presided over many, many funerals. I have no doubt of that. And then you went to services on Shabbat immediately after the funeral and performed your duty as a Shabbat rabbi. But you were impure. How could you do that? It doesn't make sense to me.
No, but it doesn't go on Shabbat to a funeral.
No,
I didn't say he went to Shabbat on a funeral.
What Herman meant
and then went to Shabbat services.
Was that I had a funeral, God forbid, last week, late Friday afternoon, and then went to shul. That's what he means.
No, anytime within the week.
I covered.
Okay, go ahead.
Herman, accept it. I covered for you. Now, I am not involved in offering sacrifices. Only in that circumstance would my ritual impurity limit my ability to do certain things. So it doesn't connect. It is not the same thing. It is not the same thing. How many rabbis have gone from funeral to wedding or wedding to funeral to baby naming to all kinds of other things? It does not limit that. Herman, we're only talking about offering a sacrifice, that kind of ritual behavior, nothing else. I see a lot of hands. I see Howard.
Well, also another place of course is where it applies today. It would be where a Kohen Cohen or Kohen is allowed to stand or be. You can't
I'm
be.
sorry, a Kohen is allowed to what?
To be. You're not, a Kohen is not allowed to go to a place where there is impurity.
That's correct.
No. So it's very much a rule today. But to me, I've always thought of it, understood the impurity to be not an impurity of the soul, but it's like an impurity, like dirt has fallen on you, or some kind of invisible spores.
I know that a Kohen would never go into a funeral home. A rabbi who is a Kohen, I've seen it happen, will stand outside the actual building. There's a French door. The French door is open. The rabbi is outside the building. He can conduct the funeral through the French door to the people sitting in the funeral home.
But he wouldn't touch the door.
He would not do that.
It's
Yes.
like static electricity.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
It's like static electricity.
We can draw that kind of parallel. We don't have sacrificial offerings. We therefore are not involved in sacrificial disabilities with proximity to a corpse and a Kohen. I've mentioned this here to us before. That's still binding. A caring Kohen will never willingly go into a setting in which there is a corpse. The impurity, however, is embraced by a Kohen when there is a death very closely related to that person. And you do it because caring for the dead of your immediate family has priority. And then you have to do mikvah, you do purification, and it goes on. Okay, I see Fern, I see Cindy.
Mine's simple. Just how long are you impure?
Okay, I don't have an answer to that. I know that the tradition would like 7 days. And I would give a 7 days, but that's a wild-eyed guess on my part. Okay,
I share Herman's response to excusing, I guess, of saying that certain things are not acceptable for God. It's a value judgment that it's not, that you're not pure. I mean, you can pure for whatever purpose, pure for the most holy of purposes. You're not pure if you've been near a corpse. It's the same sense I get about impurities of women who are menstruating. It is a value judgment about what makes you pure, and it's troubling to me, and it's troubling to me to explain it away.
I was hoping I was not explaining it away as much as I was explaining it. In a sense, Fern, let's be blunt and honest. The world of the Bible is not my world. I can explain much of how they came to certain conclusions or prohibitions or practices. But my explaining does not mean I agree. It is attempting as an anthropologist. Oh, that's me. I have another degree. As an anthropologist, to say, looking at these people, this is why they do what they do. It doesn't mean, therefore, that's cool. I will now tear the heart out of my enemy and offer it up as a sacrifice. I can explain that.
I find that answer a lot more satisfying than trying to say, how do we have to behave because the Torah tells us this. I find that an answer, what you're saying, much more in line with the Reform Judaism that I can participate in.
Okay, but for to be fair, and I try not to be, my response is not just a Reform response. I mean, I think a lot of less than ultra-Orthodox people would be able to consider the text, look at the text, analyze, tear it apart, deal with it, be absorbed in it without being identified as supporting it. I mean, I can do eye for an eye. I can do capital punishment. I can do a whole bunch of things. But that doesn't mean I agree. I am attempting to understand. And part of this great book that we're working on right now, and within minutes of being finished, is to see why people did what they did at that moment, and to understand that there is reaction to that. And we change because of our reactions. So yeah, I'm there. Thank you for your comment. Thank you. I'm looking for other hands. Eric, a quick one. Oh, wait, Penina. Okay, Penina, yes.
I'm looking at it in a practical way. And the COVID is one example that we need to separate from other people if there is a suspicion that you were exposed to somebody that was sick. And serving the sacrifices requires you to go into the crowd, into the place with other people go into to do it. So when they say nefesh chaya, the person might be dying, might not be dead already, because it still might be very sick, and they know that he's gonna die. Otherwise, why would they say nefesh chaya? He's still alive, or very, very sick, about to die, and then he dies. But then you need a space. They figured it out that there is a separation of few days before a person might be okay. And saying that there is going to be a sudden death as a punishment for being next to that person, it's something that will happen anyhow. That other person who was next to it will die because he will get it also. So you look at this whole thing, they're looking at the result. But if you're going back to nature or the way things are even happening now, this is exactly the process of what's happening if you're exposed to a contagious disease.
Okay, by the way, I'd point out that if you go into Leviticus and you talk about Tazria Mitzorah and you talk about exposure to skin diseases,
yes,
there was some notion of quarantine.
Absolutely.
And there was some notion of contagious.
Yeah.
I need to, Ray, you're great. There is a book that Ray wrote in the comments, and I can just ask you all to read that comment by Ray. Ray, this is a cri de coeur. This is an outcry from your heart, and I can only agree with you, and I can certainly tell you that I feel what you are saying and what you so articulately wrote.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Really, Tamara points out, and this is all, God, is this worth a semester study? All of this stuff. Impurity is generated by the intersection of life and death. Wow. What a beautifully expressed comment. It is frightening, and frightening has a lot to do, Fern, with what is impure. Frightening pushes the impurity button. And what people are afraid of, they tell us to stay away from.
Exactly.
And I would have to say to Ray that, and for menstruation is one of those things. It is frightening. It is frightening. And in the ancient world, frightening is so close to impure. And the connection of the menstrual cycle and birth is there, the intersection of life and death. Excuse me. I'm just having a heck of a good time this morning, Larry.
So I actually originally raised my hand for a different reason, but this discussion makes me wonder if, and whether the language in Hebrew supports this, that impure might not exactly be the right word for the concept that we're talking about. It may be something more like, or less value laden, like disqualified or excluded or something like that. And throughout the comments, people's explanation as to why the rule exists, all of those things make sense to me. What Mara said and Joseph before, Ray and Tamara, it just seems to me that maybe we're imposing English language values on the word, but maybe not.
I'm not supposed to get an aesthetic appreciation of my having the privilege of studying with this group, but I am, this morning is amazing. It's just amazing. And you know what? A fact of the matter is, Larry, disqualifying as a translation for Tameh, I like it. I like it. It's totally wrong, but it's right. And because impure has a strong, it's a truckload of value judgment to be impure. Disqualified is less. Later on, I may claim that translation as my own and simply forget that you said it first.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
No, I think that's an honor. By the way, speaking of honor, and unfortunately, here we are. I'm going to ask you a question. Quick answers required. The householders, the people who went to ask the question of Moses and Aaron, it says they appearing the same day before Moses and Aaron. Question, scholars, what were Moses and Aaron doing? The rabbis have an answer, studying Torah. So in case you wanted to know what Moses and Aaron were doing when the people came, they were studying Torah. They were sitting in a Beit Midrash. Now, the last question before we go to Kaddish, and I got to thank you again. Oh, what an awesome day. Wow. Okay. Is give me one more example from the Torah when Moses didn't have the answer and had to go running to God. I could give it as a homework assignment.
Hand up. Say it.
Pardon?
You got it. You got it.
I don't have, I
can't
have
hear
part
you.
of it.
Sorry, Mara and Harv?
Yeah, I think it had to do with the women or sisters who couldn't inherit the land.
This has been a great day. You're fabulous. Yes, the daughters of Zelophehad. Moses got the question. He said, Ve'ezmir, and then went running to God. Yes, 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 and yes. Wow. Gold star. Okay. What a day. Okay, we're going to go to Kaddish with my gratitude. Don't tell anyone else that we're doing this because it's way too good what we have here. Okay, we're going to move now to Kaddish. I'll mention, first of all, those who have passed away during the past month. Jessica Bayer, Bob Feldman, Jay Goldberg, Helen Roseman, Sylvia Schlosser, Myron Mike Sholem, Sonia Wallen, Joseph David Weissman, Joanne Wolf, and I'm adding on my own Aleph Bet Yehoshua. Yortzites that have occurred during the past week. May Alberstone, Valentine Ahmed, Mildred Barris, Jack Barnes, Misha Bellick, Louis Berger, Albert Block, Deanne Bloom, Naomi Brennan, Olga Brewer, Florence Brown, Sidney Chersky, Leonard Cohen, Irving Kohler, Susan Crane, Frederick Creamer, Max Demoff, Milton Eller, Samuel Epstein, Gene Feinstein, Frederick Fenton, Jules Feiertag, Marjorie Swito Fisher, Ralph Fommel, Aaron Friedman, Henya Freiberg, Joseph Friedman, Leo Gold, Dorothy Goldberg, George Goldfein, Donna Ray Goldstein, Mort Green, Susan Greenberg, Anita Greenberg, Howard Greller, Sidney Hirsch, Louis Israels, Marcia Jacobs, Gertrude Justman, Michelle Goldman Kane, Lucille Kaplan, Ben Kaplan, Harry Katz, Sidney Katz, Leslie Klein, Margaret Klein, Stephen Klein, Isidore Korenhauser, Sylvia Krevin, Jeanette Lampert, Sam Levin, Lester Levy, Robert Lewis, Lenore Littman, Yale, Lori, Bess Lustig, Paul Mayer, Susan Martin, Minerva Mendelson, Hadley Miller, Celia Morgalan, Effie Munjak, Leah Myers, Meyer Nagy, Henry Nyberg, Victor Noodleman, Jack Opper, Rose Osgood, Gary Parks, Helen Wildman Pollock, Elaine Pustil, Oscar Race, Richard Ritter, Sylvia Rodsky, Sally Rose, Milton Rosenfield, Misha Rudin, Sam Sabach, Harry Saul, Martin Schatz, Ruth Schiffer, Lawrence Searman, Joan Seff, Sylvia Shapiro, Jeanette Sherman, Issy Sloan, Gideon Stein, Ann Steinberg, Lottie Talpas, Benjamin Tarshish, Maurice Taylor, Florence Tucker, Alvin Vogel, Beverly Prentice Wagner, Frank Webb, Elaine Wexler, Seymour Wegg, Myrna Weinstein, David Wilkes, Arthur Weiner, Michael Zellickson. We bear in mind also the names of all who died in defense of the United States, in defense of the state of Israel. We mentioned those whose lives were cut brutally short because of acts of war or of violence. We hold in our hearts as well those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. I apologize for mispronounced names. If you would like to speak the correct pronunciation out loud, please do so. And I regret the names of those whose names should have been mentioned and were not. You certainly are invited to mention their names at this moment as we join together, in Kaddish, in a prayer of remembrance. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash, Rabba, v'almad divra chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon, v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala, uvizman karim, v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba, Yibarach, v'alam v'yomei almaya, Yitbarach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitpamam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitpalal, shmei d'kudisha, brichu, le'ila min kol birchata, v'shirata, tush b'chata, v'nechemata, Da'amiran bi'alma, v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba v'shemaya v'chayim.
Chayim aleinu.
Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'yalav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'al kol b'nei Adam v'imru amen. May God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel, make peace among all the families of nations of earth, and let us say amen. Amen. And Larry, the answer to your question is that person is free from obligation. I don't even know if you're still there. But
That's
you
a
are,
relief. That's a relief.
okay, they are
Thank you.
free. Love you guys. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Thank you for.
Thanks for letting me in.
Thank you. This has
Happy
been
Father's Day
amazing.
to all you fathers and dads, sons, and brothers.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Shalom,
Shalom and
everyone.
happy Father's Day.
Shabbat
Thank
shalom.
you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow. What a day.
Thank you. Love you all.
Bye-bye. Bye, Herman.
Bye-bye.